Okay, guys. I've been so busy with all this new stuff going on with the drums and what else have I been doing? I don't know. I'm reading a lot of books, whatever. I kind of forgot about Diablo 4 being announced, and I probably should have addressed it since I'm kind of one of my big deals is my Diablo 3 hoax, and somebody recommended that I do another one for Diablo 4 because there's a lot of gameplay footage out because they were playing it at the BlizzCon. But I think that's kind of overplayed. I don't think anybody would fall for it nowadays. Plus, the new YouTube algorithms, they might, I don't know, ban you for some reason, or just a lot of reasons not to do it. But the original reason I did the first one, Diablo 3 came out, was so that I could get my ideas about what it should be. Because I actually made 4 big long videos, and just the first one got all the attention where I looked like I was playing it. But I had all these ideas about, like, work a word boss that would use like his leg, his wooden leg as a crossbow. That was one of the main things I talk about. But so the Diablo 4 announcement trailer, the cinematics, I think I talked about it on Twitch or another video where I said it looked really good. And it did at first. All the cinematic stuff looked good. And then the gameplay came out and it looked pretty good. Watching people play it looks pretty good. But then I watched this video. I watched Asmongold reacting to a video where Quinn69 or whatever his name is, Quinn was interviewing one of the developers, and that kind of revealed a lot of the insights of how Blizzard devs think. And my fears were confirmed that like they just don't seem to understand their own IP, because all the people that made the original game have long been fired. I've made a video about that. I've made a video about how they all connect. Like someone went off to play make Mythos, and someone made Torchlight and all these other games. And how Blizzard today has nothing to do with the Blizzard that made Diablo 2, which was the greatest game ever at the time. Path of Exile now is the greatest game ever made, probably, of all time. Rocket League's way up there. But so, they were talking about how stuff's going to be soulbound, and there's going to be like these keys that have attributes similar to PoE that you put into dungeons, and it make them harder. And it's kind of like greater rifts again, and it's kind of like they're getting into their old tricks. And I mean, it's not. There's kind of some merit to some of the ideas, but I had some better ideas I think that you guys would want to hear. So, what I would do, I would make a Diablo multiverse. Because the problem is the power creep. They were talking about like once the numbers get up to like 327 trillion or something, the computers can't handle it, and the damage. If you just keep ramping up the damage, you get millions and billions of damage. You reach like a limit. And then you get to where if you want to make game mechanics more interesting, that kind of makes up for it. So you make the boss fights more interesting, stuff like that, like Path of Exile does. So what I thought you could do is you start out, and this will be a prequel, by the way. I know normally prequels are a bad idea, but you've had so much power creep in Diablo 3 with the greater rifts, and people are just godlike. You almost have to do a prequel to make it make sense. So what I would do, you know how the Nephilim are the main characters, right? They're like half angel, half demon, or like the son or children of an angel and a person. So you could also have half, whatever the opposite of a Nephilim is, like a half demon, half person. Maybe you could be one of those guys, or you could choose, or I think it will be like, you would want to be a thing called a Rift Walker. I'm going to bring Greater Rifts back into this, but I'm going to make them good. So you play the normal campaign. You're on the old world, Tristram, and you go through the Kurast and all the places, and you fight Diablo. And one of the main characters would actually be Deckard Cain. This is what I thought would be good as a prequel, because he would be like a young Deckard Cain, and there would be a point where he kind of talks to himself in the future. He sends like a projection of himself back as an old man. He doesn't know it's him, or he has to disguise himself in some way to tell himself or to guide him along the journey, because he would be like the wizard class. And then you would play these legendary people. This is how I've always wanted to be, because you had these set gear and some uniques in Diablo 2 that were named after the people that they wrote in the Diablo archive book. It's in another room. But like Bartok was one of the main ones, the Claw. That's not a set, that's unique. But that was for an assassin, but it's like a rogue class. So I figured you could have like a rogue kind of a class, and it'd actually be Bartok. And then you would have like a barbarian class that's actually Bolkathos. And you have Deckard Cain as the wizard. And then, like Tal Rasha, it kind of looks evil, the set gear in Diablo 2. So some of them would be the main bosses. So I think Talrasha would be a pretty good boss. But like Deckard Cain would be the wizard. So I'm looking at these old Diablo 2 sets. There's some that are like Arcanas, Cathans, Kyverbs, Cleglaws. Some of these could just be people that you encounter along the way. Because a lot of them were people that are in Diablo 2, like Hisaru and Iratha. I think Naj the Summoner, that was a guy. Some of them are like the people you meet in the towns. So you'd be these like main guys. I don't know what the other classes would be. Maybe some kind of a druid or monk or a combination. I don't know who that would be. Maybe like Sazabi? That seems like a wizard name. Wanin? Saigon. I don't know who Saigon would be. He's more like of a knight kind of a guy. Or Milabrega or Eisenheart would be really good for a paladin class. But like, you pick one of these main guys. Right. And then you beat the game. And then you find out that there's actually multiple Diablos and multiple worlds, and they're all connected by these rifts. The rifts are where you combine two worlds together and you make like a physical plane that's not really in reality. It's like its own sort of thing. And that's what a rift walker would be. You'd actually have a rift walker alter ego that's kind of like you could connect it to the whole thing with the soul stones, but you'd also have maybe like a memory stone, and you have like Deckard Cain's staff has a thing on top. It's like a time stone. That's like the only one that exists or something. This kind of sounds like the Avengers when you think about it. But, so once you get max level in one world, you would either die and like be reborn in another world, so you'd lose all your progress, but you would keep something. Here's where I'm having trouble thinking. Like, you should keep, like the way they melt down the uniques in Diablo 3 and you keep the attributes from the uniques, maybe something like that. You keep some kind of special stuff in your memory stone that you can use later when you're a Riftwalker, and you can combine them together and get more powerful as a Riftwalker. So then you go to another world, and this is where it gets interesting. You're starting all over again. You could pick a different class this time, but you're still going to be keeping your same memories together, which really could affect the end game. How, like, if you screw up and you're placing your skills, you have to start over from scratch. Make a lot of replayability. Like, if you needed, like, one world is like a fire world. Everybody worships fire. There's fire everywhere. The Diablo at the end of the game has more fire spells and stuff, and he drops fire gear. So if you want fire shoulders or fire helmet or something, you'd have to kill that Diablo and hope it drops. And so if you pick like a rogue class, you'd need like the leather version of the fire thing. Or if you pick like a knight class, you'd need like the plate version of the fire thing, depending on how you wanted to combine it with your Riftwalker stuff. So then you go to, like, when you're going through the game in that world, everything could be different. Like Tristram, the starting out world could be like pretty nice place, but in this world maybe everything went to shit. And you get to Kuros, instead of it being like a jungle that's all run down in ruins, it's like a big city. And you may have one world that's like a holy world where there's no Diablo at the end, because the angels kind of just took over and everything's holy, and the main boss might be some kind of an angel, and or maybe they're corrupt angels or something. And then you get like a shadow world, like holy and shadow would be two of your main elements, like fire, lightning, ice, holy, shadow. You get to the shadow world, like there's no angels. They killed all the angels off. So the Diablo at that end will be really hard, and he makes copies of himself like he did in Diablo 3. Like, he makes a shadow of your characters, and it's really hard. So you would need, like, if you're making a build that has like Shadow Flame, then you would need to get the fire and the shadow and combine them. Or if you're doing like a holy fire build, you'd need the fire and the holy guy and combine them. So then when you go into your rifts, or you're a Riftwalker, I don't know what you would get out of those, because all the loot would be in the physical plane. But when you go to the rifts, you wouldn't be getting gold. Maybe they could connect it to like the goblin portals, and how the goblins are kind of like making their own kind of a plane because they warp in and out of shit. I don't know what the end game goal would be though, because you'd have to still avoid that power creep thing. But I thought that would be a pretty good idea of like how you could, like when I was talking about WoW expansions, when you go to an expansion in WoW, it just keeps more and more, like everything gets more powerful and just ruins the game. You should have to start over from scratch with like Legion or, you know. But this is a way you start over from scratch, but you save something from it, and then you combine them all later on. But like if you switched worlds, if you went back to your original world, would that guy be deleted because you had to die? Or would you have like, maybe you could even become like Diablo? Because maybe you could even say like Baal and Diablo and Duriel and Andariel, they were all demons, but they're also Rift Walkers. Like if you look at the Rift Guardians in Diablo 3, they kind of look like Diablo kind of demons. Some of them do. Maybe you'd be like one of those guys. And you could invade worlds and just kill a bunch of humans if you want. I don't know. There's so much you can do if you're a creative person that you can't do if you work for Blizzard, because there's no creative people working for Blizzard. I thought about making this video because I watched It's a Gundam's video about how the woman that's like the CEO or whatever of Star Wars now, she said that they can't make a good Star Wars movie because there's no books or comic books for Star Wars, and they're just all sitting around coming up with ideas on their own. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's 1 billion books for Star Wars. He showed like pictures of like all these Star Wars books. Like, people that are in the industries now for the money, they have no fucking clue what they're doing. They hire them because of their resume or something. They're not even creative. They're not even like fans of the art or fans of the IP, and like, what the hell's going on? They need people like me running the world is what I'm saying. You really should elect me as your leader, and I'll just run shit. Thank you.